Erikazini presenta Bookmania.
Interviste, anticipazioni e consigli di lettura per il tempo libero.
Go tell a friend.
Bookmania, dove il libro è protagonista.
Un saluto a tutti e bentornati all'appuntamento con i libri. Oggi abbiamo un ospite speciale perché abbiamo letteralmente adorato il suo primo libro Rainbirds e adesso è uscito il secondo che si intitola Il mondo perfetto di Miwako Sumida. Sto parlando di Clarissa Goenawan, nostra ospite di oggi, libri entrambi pubblicati per Carbonio Editore. Quindi diamo subito il benvenuto a Clarissa. Nice to meet you, Clarissa.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a very pleasure. You're from Singapore, so very
Yes.
far from us, and it's a very pleasure to have you there. And we can start immediately asking you some questions about your
Sure,
new
go
book.
ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Your second novel, The Perfect World of Miwako Sumida, has just been released in Italy, and after having conquered us with Rainbirds, we have also devoured this book. Both stories are touching and intriguing and tell us about absence that are in reality great presences. What fascinates you about the disappearance theme?
That's a very interesting question. I think sometimes in order to find ourselves, we need to lose ourselves in the process. That's I think it is. Yeah, so sometimes I think in order to discover ourselves, sometimes we need to lose ourselves in the process. And I guess that's where the disappearing comes in. I think as a whole that often I also see that the need to just take a pause from our life in order to understand ourselves a little bit more, whether it's taking a holiday or maybe just taking a short walks. And this pause can be just a very short one, a few hours, or even a longer one, like what the characters in the book experience. But I think it's important to take a break every now and then.
Let's talk about The Perfect World. What's the genesis of this story? What inspires you, Miwako's story?
I think in general, most of my novels have quite a similar theme, which is often we thought that we know someone, but later on we realize we don't really know them. I think it happens to me a lot of times in real life. I thought that I know someone, and then suddenly I realized, oh, something happened, and I realized I don't really know this thing is happening. And I guess at the end of the day, I try to tell myself, though, we need to be kinder to other people because we don't really know what they're going through. And sometimes people might look like everything looks perfect. People look like they're happy, but maybe there's something more to their life that we are not privy to. So basically, I guess just be kind to everyone because there might be more than what meets the eye.
And all the book is about Miwako, seen through different point of views. But how would you introduce her to readers?
I think it was quite interesting because often I feel, even as a person, when we interact with different people, we tend to portray a different version of ourselves. Like, for example, when we talk to our friends, it will be different from we talk to our colleagues at work and we talk to our family. And each person might have a different kind of experience about the kind of person we are. So when I introduced Miwako to the readers, I thought it would be interesting to see her from different point of view, because actually if you see, everyone is right about her, but they just see a different shades of her. And at the same time, I think when I read the book, I wanted readers to fall in love with her first. So it was important for me that the first person who talked about Miwako is someone who loved her. So I hope that the reader also can love her first before they get to know her more. And that's what I hope.
And we love also Ryusei. It's a very interesting character. Is it inspired about a real person or not?
I would say that often most of the characters, they are like a combinations of a fictional and a real person also. So maybe I have a friends that I admire their quality. I think for me, Ryusei is a very nice person. He's very sincere. He really loves Miwako with all his heart. And I guess I took it from some of my friends. I admire their quality, but at the same time, it's also not perfect because nobody is perfect. So there's a fictional part, but there's also like some parts that I took it from other people's I know.
Also, all of us are characters in some ways, no? Not. And
Yes.
your writing is full of mystery and suspense. Despite it's not a mystery or a crime novel, the mystery seems to be life. What do you think about it?
Usually it's a little bit hard to classify what kind of books I write because I can't really tell that it is a mystery, but it's not really like the typical mystery novels. There is no like detective or there's no serial killer to catch. And it is also, some people say it's romance. Okay, there's love, but I think love is not the love is important, but you cannot really call it as a romance novel. Usually I will tell them it's more like a coming of age kind of books, but at the same time, there are a lot of mysteries there also. So it's a coming of age masquerading as a mystery books. But at the end of the day, I think most of my writing is talking about people discovering themselves or discovering other people. Usually they are trying to discover other people, but while they are trying to get to know other people or trying to understand the other people, they end up understanding themselves also. So it's a lot of self-reflections, a lot of characters, progressions, how they grow, how they mature, and how the difficult experience changed them as a person.
Yes. And your style is light and deep at the same time, managing to create stories that seems timeless. What inspires your writing?
I think for me, I like to use very simple words. And I think there's a lot of strength on things that is not being said. So instead of just writing out everything, I prefer to so-called to keep some of the things unwritten, but at the same time, I hope that readers can feel it through it. So I would say, in terms of style, is quite sparse and quite more towards the evocative side. I think inspired a lot of by the Japanese literature, Japanese novels. A lot of them have this very quiet, I call it as quiet style that is not really, there's not many complicated stuffs going on. It's very quiet, very slow, but at the same time, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of hidden meanings and there's a lot of weight into it. And I think it's quite important, especially when you're talking about difficult topics, like, for example, like suicide and this kind of thing. It's all the dark topic that people usually don't talk about, or like mental health. At the same time, I think it's important to keep it light so it doesn't really bog down too much. So there's a nice balance between the light of the prose and at the same time, the deeper of the topic. It's a very heavy topic. So that's I hope to achieve that.
Oh, yes, it's very interesting, this point of view. And you talk about Japan. The portrait of Japan that comes out from your books is extremely fascinating. Japan is not your country of origin, but you seems to be a profound connoisseur. What fascinates you about this country?
Actually, I think from when I was a kid, I love watching like animes, which is the Japanese cartoon, and reading manga, the Japanese comics. So I grew up with the Japanese culture. And most of the time, when it comes to reading too, I love reading Japanese novels. So a lot of people think that it's strange because I'm like Singaporean and was born in Indonesia. Like, why are you writing about Japan? But to me, I mean, all people who knows me, it is actually very natural because I read mostly Japanese stuff. So when it comes to writing, I think usually when you like to read romance novels and then you write something, you will end up writing romance novels. When you like to read, for example, a detective story, then you write something, you write detective story. So for me, I love reading Japanese novels. So when it comes to writing, I end up writing Japanese novel. So we don't know. I mean, when I just started writing, I wouldn't know whether this novel is going to be ever published or not. So I just told myself, okay, I want to one day write a novel. And maybe this novel will never get published, but at least I want one person to love it, and that person is me. So I think in the beginning, I just write the kind of novel I want to write. So I want something that I will love and I would like to read over and over. So I just write something that I like. And because I've always been reading Japanese novels, I end up writing Japanese novels, and the rest is history.
It was a surprise that you are not Japanese, because it's very natural, your way of writing in this way, in this stories. So we can appreciate very much this kind of stuff. And we don't talk about stories because it's mystery, and so we let readers discover all of us. But if there is something the readers will take with them after finishing reading your book, what would you like it would be?
I think this is something that different people will have a different answer. But I think for me as a writer, the number one things I would say is I hope that they enjoy the books. I think that's very important. And I hope they like it, and to me as a reader, when I read a book, the most enjoyable part is actually not while reading it, but at the end of the book after I close it, and then the story kind of like continue in my head, and I kind of think, okay, after this, what would happen? And I discuss it with my friends, and then we have different opinion. Sometimes we are arguing what will happen. So I think that's the most fun part. So of course, I hope that the reader will enjoy the story. And at the same time, I hope it can spark a lot of discussions, a lot of conversations with their friends. And especially because a lot of the topics there are topics that I think not many people are comfortable talking about it, but we should talk about it. For example, the issue with mental health and mental illness and depression, this kind of thing. I think we need to talk about it. So I hope it can spark small conversations around that.
Yes. And finally, Italian readers enjoyed, we are sure, your first book very much, and will surely devour this second as well. I leave you the microphone to send them a message if you like.
Okay. So thank you so much for reading the books. And I guess for an author is always be a very good thing for us, and it's always heartwarming when we heard that people are reading our book. And even though it's currently I've already written like 3 books, I still find it very hard to believe that people actually reading stuff I write. So thank you so much for picking up the books, and I really hope you like it.
Thank you for being here, and we can also recommend reading Il mondo perfetto di Miwako Sumida, The Perfect World of Miwako Sumida, scritto da Clarissa Goenawan, here with us. Thank you for being here, and thank you to Carbonio Editore that bring you your books here in Italy, and we are very happy.
I should thank them for bringing my books over there. It's amazing to think that people from different countries will speak a different language. They actually can also enjoy the books. I guess that's the magic of translations. I always think about it like a bridge where things actually can go to another country. It's really amazing.
And the Italian translator is very, very well, Viola Di Grado.
Yes.
We thanks the translator also. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Erikazini presenta Bookmania.
Interviste, anticipazioni e consigli di lettura per il tempo libero.
Go tell a friend. Bookmania, dove il libro è protagonista.